A little over a year ago, my wife and I went on an amazing trip to Boston. We're both huge baseball fans, and we have wanted to have the opportunity to go and see the legendary ballpark, the one and only Fenway. So we planned a trip to go when the Seattle Mariners were there, which made it even better because they're our favorite team. When we landed in New York, because we had a layover for a few hours because we had to change planes there, um, my wife and I shared the thought of, hey, let's go outside for a moment because even though we're at the airport, we can at least say I've been to New York. So we went outside for a moment and it was so dark, there really wasn't much to see. So we came back inside and went back through security. Um, the people, mostly TSA, for one reason or another, were very rude to her and I. So we just chalked it up to stereotypical New York type behavior, but it may have just been that they just simply weren't enjoying their jobs. But we don't plan on going back. We finally get to Boston, and it's about 11 p.m. We had to take a shuttle bus to get to our rental car across the airport. And when we get there was a woman at the counter that told us that we still owed an extra $350 in order to reserve the car, and it had to be paid at that time. And she was very insistent that we still owed, even though we had already fully paid for the car. And my wife knows travel, has always been able to find a deal, and always make sure everything is covered beforehand. But because we had pulled cash out for the trip, so our bank wouldn't freak out, um, the rental people only accepted cards, so we had to wander around trying to find an ATM, and we ended up having to take a shuttle back to the original area that we came from. And we searched for any type of help, which took us another 2 hours before we actually succeeded. And when we got back, there was a guy that helped us because the woman was gone at that point. He was very nice and helped us save quite a bit of money. He even told us about something that we didn't have to have for renting the car, and we were soon on our way. We eventually get to the hotel and we crashed hard in the room because we were exhausted from all the running around that we had done. The next morning, we got ready to go for the day, even though the game was in the late afternoon, because we planned to arrive early so we had time to walk around and check the scene out. When we got to the stadium, it was absolutely breathtaking. I'll be honest, I cried a little when we got to there because we were actually there at that legendary park. Um, the park has been around actually since 1908, and on top of that, the bricking and a lot of the stadium is still standing from the original stadium. They even have some of the original seating, which we had the fortunate ability to sit in during that game. And it has, of course, undergone some renovations, including construction on its most iconic feature, the Green Monster. There's so much history in this stadium, and I truly hope to that people will fight to keep it open forever. Even the streets surrounding the stadium are one of a kind. From the smell of the amazing food the street vendors cook to the barking of prices and urging you to come and take a look at their stand, the air seems electrified with the park itself. Our next day at Fenway, we arrived early again so we could take a tour of the stadium. And man, oh man, it was breathtaking to be down on that field. We even actually grabbed some dirt from the field to take home. It was rather warm that day as well, and not a cloud in sight as we made our way up to the top of the Green Monster. There was a very cool breeze hitting our face, and it felt really good. Because even though it was only 79 on the gauge, it felt like it was in the 90s. We ended up sitting in right field for the second game so we could have a different perspective of the ballpark. During the game, an older lady came up by the stairs that we were close to the seats that we were at, and we were about 3 or 4 seats in. And as she passed a little further up, she ended up falling back. I can still, unfortunately, hear the sickening thud as she hit her head, and it sounded like it was like a good thud as she hit her head on the concrete stairs. She was out cold and not responding to the medics that came to try and assist her. They finally got her onto a stretcher of sorts to get her out of there, And even with the game going on, the sound of the Velcro from the neck brace that they put on and the clanking of the wheels as they hauled her away seemed to be the only sounds in the stadium at that moment. A lot of cheering happened that day, but in the end, it was not for our Mariners as they lost badly once again to the Red Sox after what seemed like a very promising day. Nonetheless, though, we had a phenomenal time in Boston. Both of us actually suffered really bad sunburns during that day game because the sun was beating down so hard on our skin. The pain that would follow sucked because of how sunburnt we were. Was misery at its finest. My wife has very fair skin and blisters soon began to form, even with her having used sunblock. Not to mention us even shedding like Snake does. There's something morbidly fun about peeling dead skin off from a sunburn, in my opinion. Just hearing the peeling sound itself is kind of fun. Sometime soon we would like to go back for a longer day in Boston as it is a truly amazing place to go visit. The city itself has so much history and we would like to explore some of that as well. Of course, we want to go back to Fenway as well, as the atmosphere at the ballpark is something I've never experienced before. The beautiful thing is there are certain stadiums and the fans that make it that way that have a very wholesome environment to them. And a lot of that too is we are not rivals, but truly people sharing the same love for something. If you're a sports fan or even a history buff, I would recommend taking a trip to Boston and checking it out. You won't regret it. Here were a few pictures that we had taken on our trip to Fenway Park, and as you can see, it's just an absolute stunning scenery, and it's just very, very beautiful in so many ways, to the luscious grass on the field to just the amazing scenery of the Green Monster, which, as you can see in one of the pictures, we got a chance to go up into it, and it's an absolutely stunning view from up there, and you just don't realize how tall that thing really is. But hope you guys enjoy.